This is Dr.RED Panda.
You can rent a mother in Japan. Someone who cooks for you, listens to you, and tells you everything will be okay. You can rent a wife to smile at you, hold your hand, even meet your parents. You can rent a child to call you dad, to laugh with you, to make your life look complete. Or, if that's not enough, you can rent an entire family. Not for a movie, not as a joke, but for real life. And here's the disturbing part. The people who use these services don't think they're replacing something fake. They think they're fixing something real. And I'm Dr.RED Panda, and what you're about to see isn't just a strange story about Japan. It's a glimpse into something much closer to us. So the question isn't, why does this exist? The real question is, if it felt real enough, would you try it? You can rent a perfect family in Japan. So what does it actually look like to rent a family? It usually starts with a website. Clean, minimal, almost comforting. You scroll through profiles. Smiling mothers, gentle fathers, cheerful children. Each one comes with a short description. Personality, hobbies, specialties. Good listener. Warm and supportive. Experienced in family gatherings. Feels less like hiring strangers and more like choosing the life you wish you had. You pick someone, or more than one. You send a request, and then on a scheduled day, they show up. Not as actors, but as your family. A rented mother might greet you with a soft voice, ask if you've been eating well, and gently scold you for working too hard. She might cook for you, sit across from you, look at you in a way that feels familiar. A rented wife might walk beside you in public, naturally slipping her hand into yours. She laughs at the right moments. She knows when to stay quiet. And if you need to convince your real parents that your life is on track, she'll play that role too. Flawlessly. There are people who rent fathers to attend school meetings, to stand in places where someone was supposed to be. There are even entire family packages. The full set. Mother, father, child. All synchronized. All believable. You can spend an afternoon together. Shopping, talking, taking photos. Photos that look exactly like memories. And sometimes, that's the point. Because for many clients, this isn't about performance. It's about filling a gap. There was a man who hired a fake wife for years, just so his colleagues would stop asking why he was still single. There are children who grow up with rented parents at school events, never quite realizing the difference. There are people who return to the same family again and again, not because they're fooled, but because, for a few hours, it feels easier. Easier than explaining. Easier than being judged. Easier than facing what's missing. And the people providing these services, they're not amateurs. Many are trained. They study human behavior. They learn how to respond, how to comfort, how to create emotional continuity. Some even keep detailed notes. Your preferences, your past conversations, your emotional patterns. So the next time they see you, it feels like nothing was ever interrupted. Like they were always there. And maybe that's the most unsettling part. Not that it's fake, but that it's consistent, predictable, safe. The loneliness economy behind it. To understand why this exists, you have to step away from the surface. Because this isn't really about actors or services or even Japan. It's about pressure. The kind that doesn't scream, but quietly shapes how you're supposed to live. In Japan, there's an unspoken script. You grow up. You find stable work. You get married. You build a family. Not necessarily because you want to, but because that's what a complete life is supposed to look like. And if you fall out of that script, people notice. A man in his late 30s, single, was constantly questioned at work. Not aggressively, not directly, just small comments. Still no plans to settle down? You must be lonely living by yourself. Nothing harsh, but repeated enough, it starts to feel like something is wrong with you. So eventually he hired a wife. Not for love, not even for companionship. Just to show up at a company dinner. They sat together. She poured his drinks. She laughed at the right moments. And the questions stopped. That's all it took. In another case, a woman hired a fake husband to attend her high school reunion, because going alone would mean explaining her life to people who had already decided what success should look like. But walking in with someone? No explanations needed. Everything made sense again. And then there are the quieter cases. A teenage girl, whose parents were always working, began hiring the same rented mother once a month. They would cook together, talk about school, sit on the couch and do nothing. There was no performance in those moments, no audience, just the feeling of being cared for, on a schedule. And this is where it becomes uncomfortable, because it's easy to look at these stories and think, this is sad, but that's too simple. What's really happening is more precise than that. People aren't just escaping loneliness, they're escaping uncertainty. Real relationships are messy. You don't control how someone feels about you. You don't control if they stay. You don't control if they understand you. And that lack of control comes with risk. Rejection, conflict, disappointment. So when something comes along that removes all of that, people notice. Because in a rented relationship, nothing is accidental. If you want someone to listen, they listen. If you want warmth, they give it. If you want silence, they understand. It's not that the emotions are fake. It's that they're guaranteed. And the human brain responds to that. There's a concept in psychology sometimes called emotional substitution. If something consistently produces the same emotional response as the real thing, your brain doesn't strictly separate the two. Comfort feels like comfort. Attention feels like attention. Even if somewhere in the back of your mind, you know it's constructed. And over time, that line starts to blur. There was a client who had been renting the same daughter for years. They would meet on weekends, go to parks, take photos. At some point, he stopped bringing a camera because he wasn't trying to document anything anymore. He was just being there, not pretending, not performing, just existing in a version of life that felt stable. And maybe that's the core of it. Stability, because in a world where relationships are increasingly fragile, where people move, change, disconnect, the idea of something that stays consistent becomes incredibly powerful, even if it has to be built, even if it has to be paid for. So this isn't just an industry, it's a response to social expectations, to emotional risk, to the growing gap between the life people have and the life they feel they should have. And once you see it that way, it stops feeling like something distant. It starts feeling like something inevitable. When fake relationships feel more real. So maybe this isn't really about Japan at all. Because if you look closely, we're already moving in the same direction. You don't need to rent a family to experience something similar. You can open your phone, scroll for a few minutes, and suddenly, you're surrounded by people who seem perfect. Perfect relationships, perfect lives, perfectly timed affection. Messages that arrive instantly. Replies that feel thoughtful. Connections that can be turned on or off whenever you want. No risk, no confrontation, no real consequences. It's not the same as renting a mother or a wife, but it's not entirely different either, because the pattern is familiar. We are slowly redesigning relationships to be more convenient, more predictable, more controlled. And at first, that feels like progress. Less drama, less pain, less uncertainty. But there's a quiet trade-off happening underneath. Real relationships are difficult for a reason. They force you to deal with another human being who isn't designed around your needs. Someone who misunderstands you, challenges you, sometimes even hurts you. And yet, that friction is exactly what makes something real. Because it's not optimized. It's not guaranteed. It's chosen again and again despite the difficulty. So when we start replacing that with something smoother, easier, we're not just removing pain. We might also be removing depth. And that leads to a question that doesn't have an easy answer. If something gives you the same comfort, the same attention, the same sense of connection, but without the risk, is it actually worse? Or is it just different? Maybe the future of relationships isn't about what's real or fake. Maybe it's about what people are willing to accept, what they're willing to trade, and what they're no longer willing to fight for. So I'm curious, if you had the choice between a real relationship that could hurt you and a perfect one that never would, which one would you choose? And more importantly, what does that choice say about us? And that's a wrap for this episode of the video. I'm Dr. Panda. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Until next time, take care.